Hello everyone, welcome to Azure Conf Dev. Today we're going to talk about the proper architecture that you need to do when you think about architecting your solution in cloud. Okay. Before starting the session, I'll want to explain to you why I came up with this topic. This topic is very close to my heart because I have used this concept which I'm explaining using Elm, Virtual Kubelet, or the KEDA. I have also burnt my fingers sometimes. I have actually saved lots of cost. I have done both. Okay, so I wanted to share my real time experience where you can learn from my experience and not to repeat the same as I did. Okay, so it's all about architecture and also think through how a cloud native architect should think about. The basics you should think in terms of cloud architecture. Okay, now without further wasting your time, let's start. Okay. Myself, I am Karthikeyan VK. I work as a VP engineering in OMI. I am also a Microsoft Azure MVP with experience of 15 years. I have a good experience around 6 to 7 years in cloud itself. So I love working in cloud and I always keep my hands dirty by writing code. So I'm very much passionate in writing code, even though some of my roles is like engineering manager and shifting back and forth. But I love to code and also love to teach people what I have learned. Okay, let's move. So today's topic is architect using KEDA, Elm, virtual kubelets to save cost. Okay, so this topic is only for people who have actually worked in Azure for a couple of years and also who understand what is Docker and understand what is scaling, understand architecture. This is not for someone who is a developer who's just starting his career. I would say this session might not be a better session for you. We have other session running in the parallel in other topics. You can actually save your time and move on to that. This is specific for architects and also experienced people who have worked in cloud native applications. What you're going to see today, we're going to see what is AKS, we're going to see what is horizontal pod autoscaler, we're going to see why KEDA, we're going to see what is KEDA, virtual kubelets and Helm charts, and I'll show you a demo of how things are done. So I'm going to add my real-time experience, how things have worked, how things did not work, how things make sense, how there were some problems I got stuck into, how Azure is little bit it's not what they promise. So there are certain things that is there. You need to think through that when you are choosing a particular technology or particular concepts, and you have to understand the basics a bit deeper, so you can, even if you're stuck in some weird errors or weird logs, you should be able to come out because you know the basics. Okay, we're going to talk through each and every problems I faced in every places and also how I solved it. Okay, so I'll give you a very quick intro to what is AKS. Okay, as everybody should be knowing by right now, what is AKS? Because it's basically a managed service provided by Azure for Kubernetes. Okay, it reduces the complexity and operational overhead, because when you install a Kubernetes in your on-prem system, it will take at least 4 to 5 days. Some people say around 5 to 7 days when setting up the system and make it workable. Okay, so that is like even the experts. I'm talking about experts who have done it many times. Even they say that it takes around 7 days, close to 7 days to get everything done. Control plane, master, slave, getting it set up, everything is done. So they make sure it all works. What's the problem with that? 7 days is too much of a time. But in case of Azure, it takes only maximum 2 to 3 minutes, which I'm going to show you out when we create that. Okay, we'll also be talking about how I did use the kubelet. How did I use virtual kubelet and also the KEDA for my application. So AK is just a managed service for Kubernetes to save your time, nothing else. Let's dive little bit deeper into horizontal pod autoscaler. Okay, I am in understanding that I am just in understanding that you know what is Docker, you know what is Kubernetes, you know what is Node, you understand what is pod, you understand what is deployment, you understand what is service. Okay, these are the assumption I make before talking this. because that's initially I told you, right? This is not for people who have already worked, not already worked in Kubernetes or containers. Okay, so that is what is all about. This needs an experience of a little bit of experience working in Docker and Kubernetes a bit. You don't have to be an expert, but you need a hands-on experience. At least you should have done some POCs, should have done created a Kubernetes by yourself, added some Docker files. At least you should have worked in Docker. That is the basic requirement for this session. Okay, fine. So let's move on to horizontal pod autoscaler. As you see, the horizontal uses the Kubernetes uses the HPA. We call it as horizontal pod autoscaler to monitor the resources and demand and automatically scale the number of replicas. Okay. So what if I have a 100 requests per second coming up? So there might be 4 or 5 pods that is running, right? So what if it becomes 10,000? You need more pods. Someone must be there, right, to actually scale it up. So that is called the one which scales your pods is called horizontal pod autoscaler based on certain criteria. Okay, we'll explain to that what those are. Okay, when changes are required, the number of replicas increase or decrease accordingly. It works on 1.8. So HPA is nothing but someone who's taking care of auto scaling or increasing or decreasing your pods based on the metrics API that comes in. We'll look into the what are the metrics API that HPA uses and how KEDA sits together on the going forward. Okay. Okay. We spoke about what is AKS. We spoke about what is HPA. So let's dig a little bit deeper. Why KEDA? With KEDA, you can drive scaling the any number of containers in Kubernetes based on number of events needs to be processed. Basically, in HPA, the metric is nothing but a metrics that they use it for what? They use it for increasing the number of pods, right? But the metrics is nothing but a CPU. It can be the RAM or it can be the other any resources that actually increases and the HPA actually goes for it. For example, say what if my current pod is not able to handle certain requests, like there are more requests that's coming in, the CPU is going up. What will HPA will do is it will monitor those pods or the nodes and then increase the number of pods or the number of nodes accordingly. But what if my application is driven by events? Okay, what if there are 1 million records that comes in inside a queue? I want to scale my application once it starts coming, even before it becomes 1,000, 10,000. I want to scale my application not based on the CPU burnout usage, but on based on the events that comes in. Okay, that is where the KEDA comes in. Okay, so KEDA is used in places when there is a event-based process that needs scaling. Okay, KEDA can scale pods based on events such as count of item in queue, blobs. It supports AWS. KEDA is an open source. Okay, so we'll see that in the next slide. Okay, so this is what is KEDA? KEDA means Kubernetes event driven auto scaling. I told you, right? HPA's metrics are based on what? Either CPU, RAM, and other resources, but KEDA will help you to scale based on events. Okay, it's a single purpose or lightweight component that can be used into any Kubernetes cluster. It can be in AKS, it can be in EKS, it can be GCP Kubernetes, it can be on-prem, it can be on OpenShift, it can support any Kubernetes cluster. KEDA works along with the HPA, which we already spoke about, right? So if you see the diagram here, so this is the Kubernetes API server, and KEDA will be sitting in parallel with Autopod scaler. Okay, so whenever there is an increase of metrics, any events that happens, okay, the function pods can be increased. That's the main advantage. Okay, the function pods will be automatically increased whenever there is a increase in the events. So as I told you, KEDA is based on events. So okay, so why will I choose KEDA instead of HPA? The point is, I was using a queue trigger. Okay, I want to use Kubernetes. I can still go with Azure functions. Why do I have to go with Kubernetes? Okay, the first problem was the Kubernetes consumption plan as a limitation where it actually takes care of, it can run only 5 minutes, and if you can configure it to 10 minutes, right? Azure function, that's the problem. And then also it can scale only to 200 pods. I mean 200 Azure function at a single time. But in my project, I needed a more data because I want certain things to run, which I mean it's like a huge PDF I need to take, and then that PDF has to spit out some records of say some 4 crores, close to 4 to 5 crores. I wanted if I want that to run within 2 days. I don't want to wait for like many days to run, because if it runs for like say it might the whole project of moving the PDF to some kind of a data, it's an heavy lift and shift application. So it will take, if I run 200 Azure function, it might run for more than 5 or 6 days, because if it fails in middle, I will not know what happened. I don't want to take that risk of waiting for 7 days, even though the development itself took me like a month to actually finish it. But yeah, but the point is we want to build a system which is highly scalable and also highly reliable. Okay, so that is why we want to went to Kubernetes. One second. So we went to Kubernetes, and then what we thought is, okay, let's figure out how to do it, because there are some limitations to Azure functions, and also I don't want to have a cold start and have some function memory limitations if there are memory limitations, because it's a PDF. Some PDF might be higher, and then some Azure function might fail. Then I have to choose a difference. I have to go to premium plan. So I weighed pros and cons with Azure functions and KDA. And Azure KDA seems to be a better option for me because I have more control over the CPU, I have more control over the RAM, and I also have more control over the timeout issue. There is no timeout issue in KDA because it can run forever. Yeah, there are some problems when terminating. We'll talk about that later. Okay, so the main point of choosing KDA is I was comparing Azure functions and KDA, but still I was we were using a Azure function in KDA itself. I'll explain to that later when we see the example, a small example I have put together. I have keep it very simple, so you guys can actually take it and then run and see that in your application, in your sample. Okay, so I have created a GitHub in my own account. I have made it very simple, so you can take it forward. It's like a 7 steps. I have put it I've put it in a very simple way. It's a Python application, normal queue trigger made out of Azure function. You should actually try it. Okay, so what is virtual kubelets? Before, so I spoke about KDA, right? KDA is what? Something that takes care of scaling your number of pods, or descaling or reducing the number of pods based on the events that has happened. Okay, we'll see an example what it means in a demo. Before that, we need to know one more thing: virtual kubelets. Okay, what is virtual kubelets? Virtual kubelets is an open source Kubernetes kubelet implementation that actually serves in purpose of connecting your Kubernetes to other APIs. Okay, virtual kubelet is nothing but a feature, a pluggable architecture and direct use of Kubernetes in making it easier to build on. Okay, so it's you need to make sure that your virtual kubelet features are pluggable, meaning I have a node. Okay, what if I want that node only for certain time and I don't want to use it later point of time, meaning like a serverless. I was talking to Azure functions, right? It scales to some 200 Azure functions and it scales down. After that, I don't have to pay. I can pay only for that time. The same way, the virtual kubelet can act as a, I'll show you an example for that. Okay, how virtual kubelets works? So can you see here in the example, there are multiple nodes for a Kubernetes, right? And the virtual kubelet is also there. So this example gives you a easier way of looking at things. If you see here, the virtual kubelets is actually in parallel with Node, but you will not be paying for this virtual kubelet until you use it. Once you use it, it will splurge lots of pods, and then it is all okay. It will be deleted, or it will stays as a one kind of a virtual node there, and you will not be paying any cost to it. But these nodes you will be paying the cost. As of now, you need to pay at least for a node. Okay, the Brendan Burns was talking about even making this single node as not even there. So you can use the Kubernetes completely serverless. Right now, even if they serverless, you still need to have one node which you need to pay for a month, and it like banks like it's like they take you lots of your money. They'll put some log analytics money, some load balancer, some a VM cost. I don't know. Like they split it in so much that you might think it is some $1,000 or $2,000, but it'll come around 4,000 to 5,000 even if you put a B2MS because of other service they provide. Okay, so be careful on choosing Kubernetes until or otherwise it's really needed and you have a very good business case that actually supports Kubernetes usage. Don't go for Kubernetes. Use Azure Functions, web apps. Those are very simple things to do. And if you have more, if you need more control, as in my case, I had a machine learning workload, so I have to go for Kubernetes to solve the timeout problem and also other problems that is related to the Kubernetes. Okay, so which will not solved by the Azure function. So be careful on choosing Kubernetes and cost. Until or otherwise you know what you're doing, please don't choose Kubernetes. And the better ways to, the saving the cost, for saving a cost, go for Azure Functions. If you still want to use Kubernetes, you can use SCADA and also the virtual kubelet to save your cost rather than paying for a node that sits for idle for a long time. So virtual kubelet you will be paying only for usage. Okay, you can run the same kubectl commands that you run for virtual kubelets. That will all be the same, but these things will differ. But it will not be, the logs will not be available, and you need to make sure that you put a proper logging so it logs somewhere, persists it somewhere. So those are the drawbacks are there for virtual kubelets. What I did was I enabled uh, app insights. The app insights from the code. That code will write the log into apps insight, and it will take some 40 to 50 seconds to reflect. But it's okay. Okay, but if you are using virtual kubelet, make sure that you enable log insight. You cannot what to say, run the kubectl logs command, tail command to figure out the logs, because it will be deleted. You will not be seeing much of a proper logs. So that is one of the disadvantage of using virtual kubelet. And other than that, one more thing you need to make sure that is by default, I think Azure allows you to create 20 pods, I guess, 20 pods, 20 virtual kubelet pods. You need to create a request in Azure portal that they have given, where you can actually increase the pod to 100 or whatever count you want to. They'll send you if you create the ticket, they'll send you an email asking how many pods you want and what is the VM size. You can actually tell them they'll also ask you about the memory and all. You can actually quote whatever you're doing into 10 and then send them, because you might need it sometime. I don't think so. They will say no to any number of number of pods you ask for, because they just don't want you to waste money by doing something which without knowing it and upscaling it to replicas of 200 or 500 or 1,000 and paying for lots of hours. I think that's the reason they have stopped it to 10, 20 pods, I guess. I forgot the number. I remember, I mean, it was a long time I created the tickets. So it will be go back and forth, back and forth. It took me a month, 10 to 15 days to make sure that they actually really created that. Okay, so my history apart. So make sure that Kubernetes is needed. You can think about Azure Functions or web app whenever it's needed, because the cost is too high when you architect a solution in Kubernetes. Mine was a machine learning workload. That is the reason why I used Kubernetes. And using KDA and virtual kubelet, I was able to reduce the cost a little bit lesser than what would have been more. Okay, with a normal Azure Functions or a VM or any kind of ACI. I would have even taken a VM and then put those workloads, but I would have actually spent more time, and sometimes a VM would have been idle, and I have to make sure that it updates and all those infrastructural management work I have to do, updating, patching, all those security reasons, and enabling proper subnets and all those things I have to do. But with Kubernetes, I don't have that problem, which is the main advantage of using Kubernetes. Okay. So whenever you use a Kubernetes, make sure that you actually be a devil's advocate on why I shouldn't use a Kubernetes, and then come back using Kubernetes and use leverage the virtual kubelets, SCADA, and other technology available with Kubernetes. So make sure that when you architect thinking in a serverless perspective, make sure you enable monitoring properly, because those logs will be all thrown out. Okay. Okay. So next is my interesting one. What is Helm chart? Okay, I'll say what is Helm chart. Before that, we'll see into the problem of why Helm chart. Okay. So Helm chart. See, previously what I have to do right whenever I want to create some kind of for service or deployment, I need to write a huge YAML file and then run it, and then if I want to say I have a one more different type of deployment, but it's little bit different, then I have to copy paste the same YAML file and then replace whatever it's needed, and it's hell of a ride. Okay, so maintaining those huge number of files was very tough. And then what will happen is you will forget to substitute a variable. If something will screw up, something will not get triggered, something will replicate like multiple times, something will not replicate, something will not run. So those are all the problems that came in. So debugging was like hell of a time. Once Helm chart came in, right, it was easy for us to actually start writing YAML files in a better way, and also yeah, more like a coding way. Okay, it's almost looks like a Go language if you want to write some kind of a templating or any other iterative code that you want to write, some for loop or if or template substitution. You can write it in the Helm chart. We'll look into that in detail when we look around the Helm chart we are going to use. Okay, so because it will take some time for Kubernetes to set up, like it will take some 2 or 3 minutes. So on the meantime, I'll be explaining you about Helm chart. I'll be explaining about what we have done in the project. We have explained you about how simple is it to use Helm charts than before. But saying that, it's still lots of bells and whistles. You need to make sure that you know a certain bit of concepts such as deployment, scaling, object, and those are the important concepts you need to know before moving into the Kubernetes. Like what is a load balancer, what is what is subnet, what is ingress, how can you scale it, the SSL, because even the SSL certificate, it's actually pretty much a cakewalk in Azure than can consider with AWS or GCP. It is like you can actually put that file in the key vault and then you can grab it whenever you want and it becomes an SSL certificate, which is which is huge. Okay, but that is not so easy in Kubernetes. You have to make sure that you understand certain concept before even trying out. Okay, so Helm chart is something which will help you to reduce the labor work of writing some kind of a code for deployment, and also it will give you a Go kind of a programming language where you can write some code and then get your things done for repetitive processes. Okay. So Helm chart is nothing but a package manager for Kubernetes, something like npm, something like a app, homebrew. So it's like that. So Helm uses a packaging format called charts. Okay, we'll explain that in the demo. A chart is a collection of files that describe a related set of Kubernetes sources. It's nothing but a service and a deployment and other ingress or any other services that is for Kubernetes. Helm is the best way to find, share, and use software built for Kubernetes. It's basically a better way. You can see I have uploaded a Helm chart in the Helm chart in the to GitHub. You can use that in your projects for understanding. So because the initial setup was extremely tough, there wasn't one single place where you can find a this collection where it will talks to you about, or like a simple example that actually gives you how to do a virtual kubelet, SCADA, and also use the Helm chart. Okay, so there is no example which actually explains that. So this might be a better example for you guys to actually use it in your project if you want to move to SCADA, Kubernetes, and virtual kubelet with Helm charts. Okay. Okay, let's start with the demo. I think there is some problem with screen share. Give me a minute. Hope you can see my screen now. Yes. Okay, perfect. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a new AKS. Let's type AKS itself. Yeah. Click on Add Kubernetes. I'm going to select the existing group and then I'll even scroll cube demo azconf. Okay, that's good. I'll change the size to something like a small one, like PSM2 or something like that. So even if I forget, I don't waste lots of money. Important thing you need to enable is this one. Enable virtual nodes. Make sure that you enable this, and then something Azure has done, so it's not working out properly. Okay, so you need to create a proper subnet. Okay, I've already created that with the details. So virtual accumulator and default subnet, and then click on review and create. It will take some time. It will validate your networking, node pools and everything. Hopefully the validation passes now. Probably select Southeast Asia or something like that, because South India Kubernetes does not support certain concepts or features. Okay, I think we're good. Let's let it deploy. Okay. Before that, what I'm going to show is I'm going to show you the one which I have created in my account. You can even fork it if you want. It's in my account. So this is my account, Karthikeyan VK from GitHub. Okay, I have shared that in the I'll share it to you if you want also. All you do is GitHub/Karthikeyan VK. It will be probably the first repository, or search for KDA or something like that. You'll be able to see it. Okay, so this is a repository. Try getting latest. I've already got latest for time's sake. Okay, so this is a proper normal KDA application. I'm going to explain it to you one by one before diving deeper. Let the Kubernetes get created. Okay, this is the QTrigger Python application. That's a default sample application whenever you create, right? Func start, whatever you do, it will give you a proper one. This is the default one. It does not have much code. It uses the default code that comes with the default template of Azure functions. See, yeah, it's nothing. Okay, it's a simple Azure function made up of Python. The next is the main is the KDA charts. Okay, so you need to create a chart.yaml which tells you the version and also the sources. You can even put maintenance. There are multiple things you can see it later, but this is something like a metadata file to talk about what your chart is. It's nothing more than that. You can give some name, give some version to it, and some maintenance name and email and those details. Okay, fine. The main files are the three files: values, deployment.yaml, and scaled object.yaml. This is the three files you need to know before understanding it. Before that, what we'll do is we'll check whether the Azure is created or not. I mean, AK is created or not. Yeah, it's still running. Let it run. Okay. So the value.yaml is a file which gives you something like a variable files or the value file that has the value that you want to repeat. Say certain file name like Q name you want to repeat in multiple files. You can use this in the value file and then you can call that in value file. With the Visual Studio Elm plugins, if you install it will actually autocomplete, which is a beautiful and cool feature, because I still remember writing YAML files before and it is sucks. Okay, it is very crazy and you have to remember everything and it is a nightmare. Now using this value file and with Visual Studio Code, things have become easier and easier. Even though there are still lots of bells and whistles, I would still say Helm has become made our life simpler for people to get into the Kubernetes and start working on the actual problem. Okay, so because our we are paid for solving the business problems, right? We are not paid for solving the infrastructure problem, even though we are, but our success is for paying in the solving the actual business problem. People don't care what you do in Helm chart or Kubernetes or any great technology, but people care whether their business application works or not. Okay, fine. Saying that, let's move on to the code. So values.yaml, I told you, it is a code which actually talks to you about a value. It gives you a place where you can actually say some common variable which you want to use it across multiple files for multiple pods. Okay. So deployment YAML is nothing but deployment, which you know. Before that we'll go to scaled object. So scaled object is nothing but talks to you about the objects scaling, how your deployment should scale, right? So what if I want a pod of 10 pods and a minimum should be 3 and maximum cooling period can be 10. The trigger is basically a queue which has a connection string, this connection string, and then is an Azure queue. So there are multiple KEDA supports multiple collaborative technology. Let's look into that. KEDA. So if you see here, there are multiple scalers available. They are ActiveMQ, Apache Kafka, AWS, Azure, CPU, UI, CloudEye, IBM MQ. There are multiple scalers that are available for KEDA. You should check out these things, and these are all open source, even though it is created and funded mostly by Microsoft. They do it with collaboration with Red Hat also. Okay, so KEDA is something which is open source and also suppose multiple other third party application which is not even not in Azure also. Okay, fine. So the resource has been created. Let's open that. Before that, we'll finish the Visual Studio Code work. Okay. Right, alright. So now you understood what is scaled object, right? It gives you the triggers and also the details about the deployment of number of pods. How to scale your pods. Deployment YAML is nothing but details about the containers, okay, and also about the details of using the virtual kubelet that needs to be present here. Okay, fine. Let's move on to the code. Let's go ahead and I'll go ahead and I'm just trying to get latest. 1 second. Yes, I got latest. Super cool. Okay, so in this file you can also see about this node selector. Okay, so this node selector is nothing but telling this pod or this deployment should run in virtual kubelet. Okay, this is a command, this is a code you need to put in your deployment.yaml. Okay, so three things you saw, right? The first is the values.yaml, which is a collection of your variables which you are gonna use it somewhere. Okay, use it in a deployment or use it in the scaled object or any other ingress or any other YAML files which you will be using inside the charts. And then scaled object, and the scaled object is nothing but a one which uses a deployment and how it should be scaled. Basically, scaled object is nothing but telling the deployment how your pods or containers should be scaled. Okay, and then deployment talks about the container details, and also the node selector tells you about the actual node selector tells you about the actual node where your pod should run. Okay, let's dive into the portal. Hopefully you can see it. Okay, yeah, let's connect. Hopefully you can see kubectl works here. Okay. Let's go ahead and connect it. Okay, now you can see it off. Fine. So I've connected the AKS now. Okay, so I'm gonna use the commands which is already available in the example I've shown you. Okay, all you need to do is you need to create a first install KDA, right? Because that's the first step you need to do. So we enabled you remember we enabled virtual kubelet there. Okay, so that's the one. And also now I'm installing KDA now in the Kubernetes which we created right now. It will take a while. Okay, it's fine. So next is install the certain KDA Azure function scaler that actually installs when you run this command. Okay, you can actually put a namespace also, or if you don't put a namespace, it will take it default. I'm gonna put some cube test, but really doesn't matter, you can put any namespace. But if you use it in production, you give a proper namespace because it becomes a KDA based cube scaler. Okay, it's all done now. So yeah, fine. Let's go to the charts now. Okay, let's go ahead and check how we can do. So I'm gonna install the chart. I'm gonna clear it before so you'll be able to see it better. Elm install. That's a command you need to use. Elm install. Give a name. Say Q test trigger / you need to say the where your chart.yaml exists. Okay, that is a folder name. I'm giving elm install q test trigger. Okay, now it's done. Now you need to make sure that you push a q trigger, meaning push a q into that, right? So what we need to do is, we can do a simple thing. Go back to Azure portal, search for AZ Power, the one which I gave there. 1 second. Yes, I'll queue in that. Okay, hold on. Let me show you that guy. Okay, this is the storage account we used, right? So I'm gonna use the Explorer. Yeah. Add a message. I'm gonna add some empty message. Okay, yeah, fine, it should trigger now. We'll go and check whether it is triggering properly. Let's run the command and see. Okay, can you see here? It's running in the virtual ACI node. Okay, it's waiting, meaning the pods are getting created. Okay, so the problems I faced, I'll explain to the problems all I faced. Okay, the first problem I faced was the cost. Okay, the point is, when I used directly Kubernetes, it was costing me, the number of nodes has to be even though I used auto scaling, there'll be, you have to pay for one node, and that node will also auto scale and it will reduce in a very better time. But in case of KEDA, you can actually use the current node and also use the virtual kubelet, where you'll be paying for very lesser amount than the actual node you use, for even though if you use auto scaling. And the other important message is, you need to make sure that for even for your virtual kubelet, the default is only 20 pods. You need to make sure that the pods is you get increase number of pods increased by creating a ticket in Azure portal itself. You can figure the Google that link out. That is very simple process. They'll send an email and you need to reply. They'll just approve that, and you will be able to you start using it. The next problem I came across is the timeout that was there in Azure function. That's the main reason I used to move to Kubernetes, and I don't want to wait for a longer time. I want to, and the limitation of Azure function is around some 200 Azure functions. I wanted more than 1000 to 3000 pods run at the same time, because we want to finish that in a day. Okay, so that's one of the other reason I moved to Kubernetes. I'm saying that don't go to Kubernetes until you have a proper business needs, and then even if you go for Kubernetes, use KEDA and also virtual kubelets options to make sure it works fine. Okay, so yeah, saying that, this is the end of our demo. So what you're going to do is, I'm going to wait. So these are our sponsors. So for further reference, you can actually see those details files which I'll be sharing with you. And these are our sponsors: Microsoft, Elasticsearch, everyone. And these are tech communities. Ours is a Chennai Azure tech community. If you are in Chennai or close to Chennai, you can actually connect with us if you want to learn more about Azure. We always talk about lots of latest technologies in Azure, which is very much interesting one. If you want to talk in events also, you are very much welcome to talk in our events, which is a pretty nice event to do. These are other community events. Okay, thank you. So I'll wait for the questions. Okay, so in the channel which we have provided, and then yeah, we'll take it from there. Nice talking to you. Thanks for this opportunity, Elias. Without you, this would have not been possible. And it's a great event because Scott Anselman is talking, has talked in the keynote, and other great speakers have spoken. All speakers are from different parts of the world. I think this is the first time this kind of a big event is even happening in India. And thanks to Elias and kudos to Elias for doing that for us. Thanks, Elias. You have always been inspiring us with all your ideas, which is we will be following after a certain point of time. You're always a starter, which has helped us. Thanks, everyone. Make sure that you follow my account. If you have any questions, you can tweet me. Which is, and you also have, if you go to the Azure Conf page, you can see the LinkedIn site. You can just put linkedin.com/KarthikEnVK. You should be able to get into my site. Follow me if you want any questions, if you want to set up any Kubernetes, if you find difficult in setting up Kubernetes, SCADA, virtual kubelet, please let me know. If you want to have any problem in even architecturing the solution, please let me know. I am happy to help. I have helped lots of people, and I've got help from lots of people to implement that. I want to give it back to the community. So please make sure that you contact me if you have any problem. Okay. Thank you guys. Thank you very much.